If you think you've seen the worst crimes on this channel, think again. Like, comment, and subscribe, because this story will make you triple lock your doors tonight. It started on a quiet street in Dayton, Ohio, Elm Street, the kind of place where people left their bikes on the lawn and wave at neighbors on their way to work. But on the night of September 3rd, 2019, everything changed. At exactly 2:47 a.m., a 911 call came through. The voice on the other end was trembling. A man, gasping for air, whispering, "Please, someone's in the house. My wife's gone." Then the line went dead. When officers arrived at 2147 Elm Street, they found the front door wide open, the smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. In the kitchen, a mug lay shattered on the floor. Upstairs in the master bedroom, the sheets were pulled halfway off the bed, one side cold, the other soaked in blood. There was no sign of forced entry, no struggle, except for a faint trail of blood leading toward the hallway window. And that's where they found it, a single handprint smeared against the glass, pointing outward. The husband, David Lane, sat on the stairs, his face pale. "She was just here," he said. "We watched a movie. She went upstairs to sleep. I heard a noise, came up, and she was gone." His wife, Melissa Lane, a 32-year-old teacher, was missing. Detective Evelyn Cross was assigned to the case. Known for her calm precision and sharp instincts, she immediately noticed something off. There was no sign of a break-in, but the window was unlocked from the inside, and on the nightstand there was a phone, face down, with a message draft still open. "I can't do this anymore. He's not who you think he is." David swore he had no idea what it meant, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The media storm hit fast. "Teacher missing from Elm Street home." Read the headlines. Neighbors claimed they'd heard nothing unusual, except one detail that kept coming up. A black SUV parked a few houses down, engine idling, around 1 a.m. No one recognized it. Detectives combed through Melissa's life. No enemies, no affairs, no money problems. She was quiet, well-liked, and active in the community. But her best friend, Carla Morton, told police something chilling. Melissa was scared. She said David was hiding something from before they moved here. A search warrant for the house revealed nothing, until Detective Cross checked the basement. Behind a loose panel near the fuse box, she found a small safe. Inside were old documents, a burner phone, and a driver's license with David's face, but a different name, Daniel Lewis. The truth began to unravel. David, or Daniel, had changed his identity 6 years earlier, after being questioned in connection with a hit-and-run in Michigan that killed a 19-year-old woman. He was never charged, but the case went cold soon after. Melissa never knew. When confronted, David didn't deny it. "I was scared," he said, tears in his eyes. "It was an accident. I didn't mean for her to die. I changed everything to move on." Melissa, she found out last month. She said she couldn't live with it. Detective Cross wasn't convinced. The timeline didn't add up. Melissa's message suggested fear, not heartbreak. And the blood on the bed, DNA confirmed it was hers, didn't match a simple disappearance. Days later, divers found her car submerged in a nearby quarry. Inside, her phone, purse, and teaching ID, but not her body. As investigators pulled surveillance from surrounding streets, something caught their attention. Footage from a neighbor's security camera across Elm Street. At 2:34 a.m., a shadowy figure walked up to the Lane's driveway. It wasn't David. The person was taller, wearing a hood, and carrying something metallic in one hand. 2 minutes later, the camera flickered. Static, then nothing. The tech team tried enhancing the footage, but the signal interference was strange, like someone had jammed it. By the end of that week, the small town of Dayton was gripped with fear. Online forums exploded with theories. Was it a random break-in? A revenge killing? Or had David staged the entire thing? Detective Cross went through the safe again. This time, she noticed something overlooked, a folded receipt from a storage facility 30 miles away, dated 2 weeks before Melissa vanished. It was under his alias, Daniel Lewis. When she arrived at Unit 47, she smelled bleach before she even opened the door. Inside were old furniture, boxes of personal items, and a tarp on the floor, recently cleaned but stained faintly with something reddish-brown. And then she saw it, a small wooden jewelry box on the shelf, engraved with Melissa's initials. Inside were wedding photos and a flash drive. The drive contained videos, home footage, laughing, vacations. But the last clip stopped everyone cold. The video showed Melissa sitting in the kitchen, tears running down her face. "If something happens to me," she whispered, "tell Carla to look under the elm tree." The screen cut to black. Detective Cross and her team rushed back to 2147 Elm Street. The backyard had an old elm tree with thick roots spreading across the lawn. Under one of them, half buried in the soil, they found a small metal box wrapped in plastic. Inside were printed screenshots, messages between Melissa and someone saved as unknown number. The last one read, "He's lying to you. He killed before. I have proof. Meet me tonight." The timestamp was 1:18 a.m., the night she disappeared. Cross felt her pulse quicken. Whoever Melissa met that night wasn't her husband. Someone else knew David's secret. Someone who'd been watching. She pulled the phone records. The unknown number traced back to a prepaid SIM card registered under the name Carla Morton, the same best friend who had warned police that David was hiding something. But Carla had an airtight alibi. She was out of town that night, staying with her sister, or so she claimed. As Cross drove to question her again, she couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't add up. Carla seemed too composed, too rehearsed, and when she mentioned the message about meeting someone, Carla's face went pale. Cross decided to dig deeper. Carla's phone record showed multiple calls to a number listed as Nate Repairs, a burner business tied to a local ex-con who once worked for a private investigator agency. When officers visited his address, they found the place empty, just a mattress, cigarettes, and a photograph pinned to the wall. A photo of Melissa and Carla, taken the week before she vanished. And scrawled beneath it in red marker were 3 words. She found out. Cross's stomach turned. Found out what? That David wasn't the only one with a secret? That night, as the storm rolled in over Dayton, Detective Cross returned to the Lane residence. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating the walls. And then she heard it, from the basement, a faint, rhythmic tapping. She drew her flashlight, descended the stairs, and followed the sound. It was coming from behind the fuse box, where the safe had been. The wall had been resealed. She pried it open, and the tapping grew louder and faster, until her beam hit something that made her blood run cold. Inside the wall cavity was a phone, still recording. The screen lit up as she reached for it. On the display was a new message that had just been sent. It read, "You're next, Evelyn." And then the light went out. The night after Detective Evelyn Cross received the message, "You're next," Elm Street looked nothing like the peaceful suburb it once was. Police lights flickered blue against rain-slicked pavement. Crime tape whipped in the wind, and the neighbors stood behind their curtains, watching in terrified silence. Cross stood near the basement entrance, her trench coat soaked through, her face set like stone. The phone that sent her that message sat sealed in an evidence bag. Its screen cracked, the message glowing faintly through the plastic. Forensics confirmed something strange. The text hadn't been sent from inside the house. It was remotely triggered through a mirrored SIM connection. Someone out there was watching, listening, and waiting. By morning, the entire Dayton Police Department was on alert. But nothing could prepare them for what came next. At 9:12 a.m., a 911 call came from a retired farmer walking his dog near a wooded area off Route 16. He'd found something buried under a thin layer of dirt, a human hand, pale and stiff. The scene was secured within the hour, and when the medical examiner arrived, the rest of the body was unearthed. It was Melissa Lane. Her wrists showed deep ligature marks, blunt trauma to the skull. She had fought hard before dying. The discovery hit the department like a hammer. The missing person case had just become a homicide. At first, suspicion pointed straight at her husband, David Lane. But within hours, that theory crumbled. The duct tape binding Melissa's wrists had fingerprints that didn't match David's. They belonged to Carla Morton, Melissa's best friend. Cross didn't hesitate. She drove downtown, sirens cutting through the afternoon air, and found Carla at her office, pale, shaking, clutching a cup of cold coffee. "Carla," Cross said quietly, "we found Melissa's body this morning, and your fingerprints are all over the tape that bound her." Carla's eyes widened, tears already forming. "No, that's not possible. I couldn't." "Then tell me how your prints got there." Carla trembled. "We were close. She borrowed things from me all the time. Makeup, tape, even tools for her classroom. Maybe that's how—" "Stop," Cross said, leaning forward. "We both know that's not how it works. You were with her, weren't you?" Carla hesitated, eyes darting to the door. "You don't understand." Melissa was scared. She thought someone was watching her. She was getting text threats weeks before she disappeared. She didn't tell David. She told me. Who was sending them? She didn't know. That's why she hired him. Carla's voice dropped to a whisper. "Nate Repairs. He said he could protect her." Cross's jaw tightened. "The same Nate Repairs who's been off the grid since Melissa vanished?" Carla nodded. "He used to work private security. He and Melissa met through a neighborhood safety group. But after she disappeared, he told me not to talk to anyone. Said if I did, I'd end up like her." That night, Cross dug into Nate Repairs. The name was fake. His real identity, Nathaniel Briggs, a disgraced private investigator fired years earlier for tampering with evidence in a domestic homicide in Michigan, the same state where David Lane's hit and run happened years ago. The connection snapped into focus. David had accidentally killed a young woman. Nathaniel was her brother. Revenge. At dawn, a statewide alert went out. Every patrol unit was told to look for a black SUV registered to Briggs. The next day, a highway camera caught it heading west toward Indiana. When they found the vehicle abandoned outside an old farmhouse on Route 41, the air turned heavy. Cross led the entry team inside. The floorboards groaned under their boots. Empty beer cans, cigarette burns, and a projector sat on a table. A single notebook lay open, filled with names and scribbled notes. One entry chilled her. ML knows. Carla is scared. Phase 2 tonight. David forgets, but I don't. And another near the bottom. Justice isn't law. Justice is balance. Cross didn't need a map to know where this was going. Nathaniel had made Melissa believe her husband was a monster, then turned her fear into a trap. Carla, terrified and manipulated, became his unwilling accomplice. Hours later, a call came from the local sheriff. A farmhouse sighting. Cross arrived with a tactical team at sunset. Rain whipped across the open field. The house loomed dark and silent, except for the flicker of light from a single upstairs window. Inside, she moved carefully, her weapon drawn. A projector played home footage on the wall. Melissa laughing, her voice echoing through the decaying house. Then Nathaniel's voice behind her. "You see, detective, you can't punish what's already broken." She turned sharply. Nathaniel Briggs. Step away from the weapon. He emerged from the shadows, bleeding from one shoulder, a pistol in hand. "You think you're the hero," he said, voice trembling. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything. My sister's death was covered up. David walked free, so I made sure he'd feel my pain." Cross steadied her aim. "Melissa didn't deserve this. You turned her into collateral." Nathaniel shook his head slowly. She found out the truth. She was going to tell. But Carla, she couldn't handle it. At that moment, a creak sounded behind him. A gunshot rang out. Nathaniel staggered, eyes wide, and fell to the floor. Behind him stood Carla Morton, holding a smoking gun, tears streaking her face. "He made me do it," she whispered. "He said if I didn't help him, he'd kill my family." Cross lowered her weapon, breathing hard. "It's over." Carla's voice broke. "No, detective, it's not. You don't understand. He wasn't working alone." Cross froze. "What?" But before Carla could say another word, her phone buzzed. On the screen, a new message appeared from an unknown number. "Clean up the mess. We're not done." Moments later, Detective Cross's own phone rang. It was Marcus from Forensics. His voice trembled. "Evelyn, that flash drive from the storage unit? There's another file, dated today. It came from Melissa's phone." Cross's eyes widened. "That's impossible. Melissa's dead." Static crackled through the line, then silence. Outside, thunder rolled over Elm Street again. Somewhere out there, the real puppet master was still watching. The storm over Dayton hadn't stopped. For 2 nights, thunder rolled through the sky like a warning. Inside the precinct, Detective Evelyn Cross stared at her computer screen, replaying the last message she received from her forensic analyst, Marcus Lee. The file came from Melissa's phone. Melissa Lane was dead. Her body had been buried, examined, identified. There was no logical way her phone could still be active unless someone had it and wanted her to know. Cross leaned back, exhaustion shadowing her face. The case that began with a missing woman had become something else entirely, a maze of lies that reached far beyond Elm Street. Nathaniel Briggs was dead. Carla Morton was in custody, and yet someone else was still moving pieces from the shadows. At dawn, she drove to the digital forensics lab. The air smelled of stale coffee and static. Marcus sat hunched over his workstation, his eyes bloodshot. "You need to see this," he said quietly. On the screen, a video began to play. It was grainy, dark, with faint timestamps flickering in the corner. The footage showed the basement of 2147, Elm Street, the same place where Cross had found a hidden phone days ago. But this time, the camera caught something far worse, a figure in a police jacket, digging to the wall cavity, pulling out a new evidence box and planting a flash drive inside. The timestamp read 2:46 a.m., the night before the explosion that killed Nathaniel. The face that looked up at the camera, illuminated by a beam of light, was hers, Detective Evelyn Cross. Her blood ran cold. "That's not me," she whispered. "That's a deep fake. Someone edited that footage." Marcus didn't respond right away. He scrubbed through the file, adjusting the filters, enhancing the metadata. "It's not a simple edit," he said finally. "Whoever did this had full access to the police evidence cloud. The encryption matches your credentials." Her chest tightened. "You're saying someone used my identity to plant fake evidence?" "I'm saying someone inside this department wants you to take the fall." Before Cross could answer, the lab lights flickered, then went out. The monitors flashed static, and a distorted voice came to the speakers. Deep, deliberate, almost mocking. "You're getting close, Detective. But the truth isn't what you think it is." Marcus jumped up. "Who is this?" The voice chuckled. "Check the beginning. You missed something." And then the power cut completely. Cross grabbed her flashlight. "Lock this place down," she ordered. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was staring at another monitor, one that hadn't shut off. On it, a single message appeared in white text. "Go back to where it began." By nightfall, Cross was standing again in front of 2147 Elm Street. The house had been boarded up, sealed by the department after the investigation. Yet somehow, its windows seemed to glow faintly in the storm. She forced the door open. The air inside was damp, heavy with the scent of rot and old dust. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark hallway, tracing the outlines of broken furniture and forgotten memories. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like a whisper. She moved downstairs to the basement, the place that had haunted her for weeks. At first glance, it looked the same. Empty shelves, cement walls. But something had changed. The wall where the hidden safe once sat now had fresh plaster. She knelt and tapped the surface. Hollow. Using her knife, she chipped away the plaster until the wall gave way. Inside was a small metallic box, wrapped in plastic. She set it down, opened it carefully, and found 2 items, a photo and a voice recorder. The photo showed Melissa Lane with a man who wasn't her husband. He looked older, confident, wearing a dark leather jacket. On the back, in faded blue ink, it read, M&M 2014. Cross pressed play on the recorder. A burst of static, then Melissa's trembling voice. "If anyone find this, tell Detective Cross I'm sorry. I trusted the wrong person." Then another voice cut in, calm, low, familiar. "You should have stayed quiet, Melissa." The recorder clicked off. Cross froze. That voice, she'd heard it before. In the lab. On every case file. It was Marcus Lee. She drove straight back to the precinct, rain slashing across the windshield. But when she arrived, the lab was empty. Marcus's computer was gone, his workstation wiped clean. Only a single envelope lay on his desk. Inside, a note written in block letters. You were never supposed to find her. Cross's pulse raced. Marcus wasn't just her colleague. He was the ghost in the system. He'd been in Michigan during David Lane's hit and run, assigned as a digital evidence analyst. Records showed he'd tampered with files that cleared David's name. The girl who died that night, Nathaniel Briggs' sister, was part of a larger cover-up. Marcus hadn't just helped David escape justice. He'd built the whole web, the aliases, the false identities, the manipulation of Nathaniel, and eventually Melissa's death. He was the unseen hand behind everything. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. Come alone. Elm Street Elementary. The abandoned school sat at the edge of town, a shell of its former self. Windows shattered. The playground drowned in weeds. Inside, the hallway smelled of mildew and smoke. Cross moved quietly, her flashlight glinting off old lockers and faded murals. In the main corridor, a faint light flickered behind a classroom door. She pushed it open and froze. A projector played footage against a cracked chalkboard. It was her again, the deepfake video from the basement. But now, another figure appeared beside her. Marcus Lee. His voice echoed through the speakers. You were the best detective I ever worked with. But even you couldn't see what was right in front of you. Where are you, Marcus? She called out. Everywhere, he said, stepping out from the shadows. He looked calm, composed, as if none of it mattered. You wanted justice, Evelyn. So did I. But justice died the day you joined the system. You manipulated people. You killed them. He smiled faintly. No, I gave them a stage. Melissa wanted the truth. Nathaniel wanted revenge. Carla wanted safety. I gave them all what they desired. I just watched it unfold. You're sick. I'm efficient. He pulled a small detonator from his pocket. This building's wired. When I'm gone, so are you. That way, the story ends where it began, Elm Street. Cross fired first. The bullet grazed his shoulder. He stumbled, grinning through the pain. Too late. The explosion tore through the floor. Flames roared upward. Cross stood behind a desk as the ceiling collapsed, choking on smoke. She crawled toward the window, glass shattering as she broke through and fell to ground outside. Behind her, Elm Street Elementary burned to the ground. 2 days later, hospital monitors beeped softly beside her bed. Her arm was bandaged, her lungs raw from smoke. A young officer entered quietly. Detective Cross, you should see this. He handed her a tablet. A video was trending online, grainy CCTV footage from a bus terminal. The man walking to the frame wore a dark jacket, moving calmly toward the exit. Marcus Lee, alive, smiling. He looked directly into the camera before disappearing into the crowd. And across the bottom of the video, a caption in red text appeared. You can't bury the truth on Elm Street. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for what's next. Hit subscribe, and remember, some nightmares never end.